Hey, welcome everyone to my demo. My name is Ned, and today we're going to be looking at Caspio in a little bit more detail. It'll be a fast-paced demo highlighting some of the more frequently used features by our customers. In the time that I have in today's video, there's no possible way for me to show you everything, but like I said, we're going to highlight some of the more frequently used ones. The way I have my demo set up on today's video is in two parts. In part one, we're going to look at some live examples of applications built on the platform. And then in part two, we're going to log into Caspio, and I want you to see how when you make a change in the back end, how it affects the front end and how our customers get to that aha moment. This is how Caspio works. It's actually very simple and intuitive. So let me go ahead and log into my Caspio account. And the first thing that you'll notice is that our customers have the ability to have multiple accounts. The benefit of having multiple accounts is that you can have one for building prototypes and proof of concepts, and then you can have a completely separate account for all of your applications that are in production or live. I'm going to log into one of my accounts that I have, and as soon as I log in, you'll see that I'm taken to the home screen. And here I'll be able to see all the applications that I have developed as long as I've had my Caspio account. It's very easy to begin building an application. You click on the button up here, and that's going to prompt you to start building your application either by importing data from an external source. So if you have some data in Access database, some kind of comma delimited file, you can import your data into the platform, and then you can build your applications on top of your data. You can also build your application from a blank template and then import the data at a later time. The application we're going to look at in more detail today is this one called Sales CRM Demo. We'll come back to the platform in just a moment to look at all the objects, but for now, let me show you the live example of this application so that you can see what it looks like deployed. So here we have the same application. The first thing you'll notice is a Caspio developed login interface. And I'm going to go ahead and log in as my sample user. I will also preface and say that all the sample data that we're going to look at today is fictitious data. There is no actual data in any of these examples that we look at today. So I will log in. And you will notice a dashboard. And all of the components that you see on this webpage are built in Caspio and deployed on this part of my website. Starting with the search interface, we have 6 different charts. Our charts are interactive, so you can click inside the legend to show and hide data in real time to hone in on specific key metrics. We can scroll down to see a pivot table, also developed in Caspio. And it's very easy to filter the data if that's what you choose to develop. I can select a specific sales rep, hit filter, and you will see how all of the components cascade underneath, displaying the data for that specific user. I can also revert back and just filter any rep, and that'll bring back the original dashboard. So it's a really nice way to see a holistic view of all of the data in a visual format. Underneath dashboard, we have a tabular report developed in Caspio. Tabular reports are rows and columns where we can see our data. I can also add a new customer if needed. And then later in my demo today, you will see how quickly we can make changes to these fields and how those changes take effect on the front end. In addition, we can also go to details for each customer, and here we can see 4 different layout options that we have. We have the ability to edit customer details. We can add a new log. I can also add a new deal, and then we can also measure some key metrics for that specific customer. These are all very typical in a sales CRM application. In addition to that, I created one extra report that shows me a combination chart which tracks all the sales by sales rep, and we can also see the average sale. And I also have a pivot table down here that ranks all of my sales reps from highest to lowest in terms of revenue contribution. And we can see total logs here on the right-hand side. Now, this sample application doesn't have a lot of data in it, but hopefully you're able to see the correlation later on. If you have a lot of logs, that will translate into a higher revenue per sales rep. Last but not least, if the user wants to update their profile, they can come over here to the submission form and update their password or any other information point. I've chosen a sales CRM demo to show you today because most of us can relate to a sales CRM where we manage contacts, forecasts, revenue, pipelines, and this application can actually resonate with many of us. For my second demo that I have is a patient portal. During the peak of the pandemic, Caspio received a lot of requests to create a patient portal where users can log in and be able to track the results of their COVID test. So I wanted to show you an example of that as well. However, I have actually built this to mimic my own healthcare provider. I'm going to go ahead and log in as a patient. And my sample user for this application is going to be John Doe. And once I log in, I will be able to track some of my own health information. Here I can see my average blood pressure readings, my weight, my temperature, and my average pulse. I can see my medical history and my profile. I can also view my messages that my healthcare provider is sending me. I can book an appointment using a calendar. I can see my prior visits. Very simple chart here as well that shows the correlation between my weight and my blood pressure reading. We're also tracking our vital signs here in this chart, and we see the previous history. And last but not least, we can build a report that shows all of our prior lab results. If I had an ultrasound or blood work, I will be able to find and retrieve that information from that report. So very simple healthcare application that has a patient portal. Of course, you can build on top of that if you wanted to have an admin interface or a healthcare provider interface where they can manage their own patients and send those messages. That would be in addition to what we're seeing here. So now we're going to go back to my sales application. I'm going to show you now in Caspio, when we make a change, how it affects the front end. So back inside Caspio, I'm going to open up that application. And first thing you'll notice are these objects that are on the left-hand side. So these are the objects that our customers use to develop their application. Data pages are application interfaces that eventually embed into your own website. So if you recall, when we looked at those charts, pivot tables, search forms, those are all called data pages. They reside in Caspio, but the way you place them onto a website is by clicking on the deploy link, enabling deployment status, and then grabbing for one of the deployment methods that Caspio provides, with the embed model being the most popular. So if you have a website, let's say you're using WordPress, Weebly, Webflow, Caspio is compatible with many of these CMS platforms, and all you need to do is just copy a snippet of code, paste that code into your website, and then you will see those components seamlessly embed into your web page. So I'm going to make a quick change to my submission form, this one right over here, new customer, so that you can see how when I make a change in Caspio, how that's going to affect my submission form. And to make a change, I first need to go to my tables. Tables are the foundation of any app that you develop in Caspio. This is where all of your data is going to reside. And this is where we manage all the fields and data types. So if I look at my customer table and if I open it, you will see what the data looks like in the back end. But when we build that data page and customize the data page, we can make it look like this, where it's in a tabular format, obviously looks a little bit more visually appealing to the end user, and you're not looking at just simple raw data. So now how do I modify my table? I can go to table design. This is going to list all of my fields in the table. I can rename a field to something else. I can delete a field, or I can add a new field to my table. So I'm just going to add a fax number field. You're going to be able to see all the different data types that I can apply to my field. Just depends on what kind of data you want to store inside that field upon submission. So you can have a text area. You can have text 64,000, which captures a lot more data if you have long text. We can do number, integer, and currency if you're, let's say, tracking numerical data such as forecast, revenue, and pipeline. We can do automatically generated IDs. We have password, which is encrypted if you're looking to create the login interface. For my example, I'm going to stick with text 255, and I'm going to save my table. And then I'm going to navigate back to my data page. I'm going to expand my user folder. And then down here, here's my data page that I created ahead of time, which is that submission form. My submission form at the moment looks like this. All we're going to do is add the fax number field to this form, and we're going to change the department field into a dropdown. So back in Caspio, we're going to edit the form. And this launches Caspio's point-and-click data page wizard. So this is Caspio's secret sauce and how we're able to develop these applications 20 times faster than using traditional methods. You can build input forms. You can build update forms. You can do password recovery. Very helpful if the user is trying to log into the application, but they've misplaced their own password. They don't have to contact the admin every time. They can just reset the password using an email. We can build different reports. We looked at a tabular report. We also looked at a pivot table. You can build calendars. Calendars are great if you're building an appointment tracking system or event management and you want to be able to plot all the events, let's say, on a calendar layout. We looked at a few charts. These are all the different types of charts that you can create for KPIs and to analyze trends. And if our users have a slightly more higher technical acumen, they can develop HTML data pages for even more robust and sophisticated solutions. But I've already had my form created ahead of time. Let's just keep that selected. We're going to hit next. Next thing you need to do is select your data source. So this is going to pull all of your tables from your application. So when you submit the form, where do you want that data to go? And you can see my customer table is already selected. You can give your data page a name. You can apply a different style. Styles are all about the aesthetics, the look and feel of your form, where you change the color of the labels, color of the fields, and you can fully customize your own style by going to this object down here, where you can match the look and feel of your brand or your corporate identity. Localizations are all about regional settings. So here you can change the format of the date, you can change the currency, you can change the language of the form to be more localized to that specific region. We're going to hit next. Then it's going to ask me what fields do you wish to use in the web form. These are the fields that I selected, but I also added my fax number field. If you recall from a minute ago, I'm just going to find that field and include that in my submission form as well. We're going to hit next. And I'm going to make two changes here. I'm going to reposition my fax number field to be underneath my phone number field, so it's a little bit higher up. And I'm also going to change my department field. Instead of that being a text field, I want to turn that into a dropdown. But you can see a slew of options here on how we can modify that field, right? I can turn that into a text area. That's not going to be beneficial at all. I can do a radio button. That could help. But I think the best way to do here is the dropdown. And then we're going to add some custom values. Even though if you had a lookup table that contained all the departments, you can quickly link to that table, which is a much more efficient way of building your dropdowns. I don't have a lookup table, so we're going to go with custom values. And then we're going to say select department. And I'm just going to go ahead and add a few, maybe sales, marketing, and human resources. When done, all you need to do is click finish to save your changes. And if you built this form for the very first time, you will have to hit deploy, enable deployment status, and grab your code and paste it into your website. But because I've already done that ahead of time, all I need to do is go back to my application, reload the form, and you will see all of those changes now take effect. So we have our fax number field, and we have our dropdown now that contains all of those options. Let me go ahead and highlight a few more features in Caspio that could be beneficial for today's video. But that is the aha moment. Hopefully you can see how easy it is to now put these data pages together by building forms and reports. And then when you're done, you simply click on the deploy link, you grab your snippet of code, and you paste it into your website. A few more things that I want to highlight. Let's go over here to the tables object. Under customers, you can click more and click on triggered actions. Triggered actions are a very powerful feature in Caspio. They allow us to automate a lot of procedures in the backend on table level. So for example, if I wanted to, let's say I'm building an e-commerce system and I have inventory management in the backend, somebody just placed an order for, let's say, quantity of 10. We could take that 10 and we can subtract that from the inventory table automatically behind the scenes. In addition to that, I could have a checkbox that's checked automatically if the inventory falls below 20% or 30% or a different threshold. And we do that by using a where clause that you can add to your trigger. If something happens, go ahead and do that. To combine that, we can also click on the elements here on the left-hand side. So if I wanted to delete something from another table based on an insert or update, I could do that. I can also send an email and combine that or string that with the other trigger up above. And the way the event will fire is top to bottom. So once this trigger executes, then the one underneath that will happen. And you can see here on the left-hand side, we can do things like insert data points into our trigger. We can do logic, if and then for more dynamic. We can do loops. We can do text, number, date comparisons, and you can also create variables that you can propagate throughout your other triggers that you have in your account. Very powerful feature that allows you to have something happen to another table if you insert, update, or delete something from any other table that's inside your account. Views. Views allow us to join tables together. In Access Database, it's called a query, but in Caspio with the views, if you have primary keys, you have foreign keys, you can create one-to-many, many-to-many, and one-to-one relationship types. Authentications. If you recall, when I logged into my Sales CRM application, here's the live example. I'm just going to go ahead and log out so that you can see. This login screen. So if you're building login screens for your applications, you're going to do that under the Authentications object. I'm going to click Edit just to show you really quickly what that looks like. So this is the wizard that allows us to set up that login interface. I can use a standard table of view. So here is my table that contains all of my sales reps that can log into my application. I've already set up my email and password fields for Corey to log in with. I can also enable external ID services if I needed to. So if I want Corey to log in with social media, let's say he has a Twitter account or Google account, he can log in that way, or she. And then we have directories as well. This is a new feature in Caspio. Directories is an enterprise-grade access management system where we can manage all the users in one place. You can also do SAML for single sign-on if you'd like. And then we have ID services if you just want to use ID services by themselves. Connections allow you to log into applications with social media services like Twitter, Facebook. So if you're just looking to post a comment on the front end, you can use your Twitter account, you can use your Facebook account, OpenID, to quickly log in to post a comment on that application. We talked about styles. I'm just going to open up one of my styles so that you can see the wizard. And in styles, this is a huge topic in itself. I can select all of my application labels, all of my fields, and let's say I wanted to change the color of my label. I can click on these three dots. I can select one of these colors that Caspio gives me, or I can add my own hex code if I wanted to change that label to something else. Same applies to fields, buttons, or anything else that's listed here on the left-hand side. Under source, if you're a bit more tech savvy, if you understand CSS, you can really manipulate the object and change the styling to have your own complete look and feel that you want. So this is a really nice user interface that allows developers to drop their own CSS to supersede Caspio's original style. We talked about localizations. So localizations is a way to change the regional settings on the application. So here you have access to all of your categories on the application. So you can change the text on the button, paging, messages that are driven by Caspio. You can also change the formatting standards, time zone, and system messages. And then we have tasks. Now tasks allow us to create schedule-based actions. Let me just give you one example of how a task works. Let's say you have a list of classes listed on the front end. And let's say the class expired. So you're checking against that date in the back end. And if the expiration date passes, I want to automatically change the status of the class to expired so it's no longer visible on the front end. So that would be an example based on the event and based on the schedule that happens in the database. A couple of more things to highlight. Up here in the admin navigation menu, we have access permissions. Caspio allows people to have unlimited developers logged in simultaneously into the platform. Very helpful if you're looking to collaborate with other coworkers, or if you have an IT team overseas. You can assign them and you can add them to your access permissions. And then what you can do is you can either set up groups with their own permissions, or you can click on the permissions for an individual user and set permissions more on a granular level. So here I can expand all of my applications. And if I only want to give this user access to my Sales CRM demo, I can give him full control, read only, so no delete capabilities. The checkboxes that you see on the right-hand side are inherited from the group, but you can override those permissions with the checkboxes on the left-hand side. If you scroll down, you're going to be able to see the other objects as well, so I can expand my tables and really get down to a detailed level in terms of permissions and control anybody who's logging into my Caspio account, all the developers. Under tools, we have import and export data. So here you can import and export your data in and out of Caspio. You can also do a data import and export, which is our Data Hub feature, which allows you to connect to an online repository. So if you have a Dropbox account, if you have a Google Drive, and you have your files stored inside Dropbox, you can set the frequency in Caspio, how often you want Caspio to go to your Dropbox account, fetch that new data, and append that data to your existing tables. A lot of our customers run this operation at midnight, so the new set of data is available in the morning when the employees log into the application. You can do payment processing. So right now we allow for two payment gateways. We have PayPal and Stripe. So if you wanted to monetize via your applications, you can connect to those payment gateways to collect money and revenue that your applications generate. Last two things that I will end the demo with are under access permissions again, under web services profile. We have Zapier built into the platform. So if you wanted to connect to other applications on the web, You can do so via Zapier, or you can create a web service profile and use our own API to send data back and forth into Caspio. All right, and the final thing that I will mention for today's demo is that Caspio, first and foremost, it is a no-code platform designed for business user or citizen developer to log in and create their own applications. But we also don't want to limit creativity and imagination. So we do allow developers to log in and inject industry standard languages. So if they're familiar with JavaScript, CSS, SQL, HTML, you can add that code into the data page wizard directly. And I'll just give you one simple example of that. So if I go back to my form of adding a new customer, we'll hit next a few times. Let's say in the heading of my form that opens up, I'm going to add an HTML block. And inside that HTML block, you can use the toolbar to add your own heading, or you can disable the toolbar if you know how to code in HTML and CSS or JavaScript. And this window that you see here is fully compatible with those industry standard languages. So I could add a simple maybe div style equals background color of maybe black. Color of my text can be, let's say, white. We can add some padding around our text, maybe 10 pixels and 20 pixels. And then maybe add a border radius to be 3 pixels. I will close my div here and I'll just add a quick heading that says maybe add new customer, and we'll close that div tag. Just a very simple inline CSS with properties and values. You can also reference an external CSS and call that in here as well if you'd like. I'm just going to hit finish to save my changes. And if I go back to my application now, and let's log in as Corey, and we go back to that submission form, now you're going to be able to see that heading. And you can also change this heading to look however you want and turn it into anything else that you need for your project. So that is highlighting some of the more frequently used features in Caspio. I wish I had more time to show you everything the platform has to offer. This is really just the tip of the iceberg. But if there are any more questions, you can always find additional videos on our YouTube channel if you want to learn more. So thank you so much for your time and have a good day.